let's move on because we've got other subjects and we've got other issues to deal with. This one's from questions from Salvatore Scevola.
The ICAC in New South Wales has shown us with clarity the amount of corruption amongst former and serving politicians. If electoral funding laws in New South Wales and the Commonwealth refund political parties and individuals that can muster 4% of the vote, in 2010 this cost taxpayers $53 million, why should there be any need for private or corporate donations at all, other than to buy influence? Shouldn't we ban political donations over $100 to restore some credibility to democracy?
Kate McClimate, let's start with you, since you've been following the ICAC very closely.
Well, look, I agree with you, Salvatore, and I think today we've seen at ICAC that one of the worrying things is that it seems that the bigger the amount of money that you donate, the larger ear you get of politicians. And I think that is something that people worry about. But the depressing thing is we've seen now, it's almost 1 in 5 of New South Wales Liberal politicians have become embroiled in this. And it's over pathetic amounts of money. I mean, it really upsets me to think that, you know, someone would sit in the back of a Bentley and accept $10,000 in cash. You think, is there not a moral compass that would tell you that, you know, a property developer giving you $10,000 in cash is not something that you should do? And I think that if we could develop a system of public funding, I, for one, would be thrilled but sad because my job at ICAC would be terribly dull.
OK, since, just before we move on, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff was pulled into this whole thing today. What do the Peter Credlin emails actually prove? Look,
I have to get this out front, they do not prove any illegality on the part of Peter Credlin. What it does show is that you've got the head of New South Wales, the chief fundraiser, just happening to drop into an email to the Chief of Staff of the opposition leader. By the way, Lindsay Partridge from Brickworks is a very big supporter of ours. And that's the worry. It's the fact that a fundraiser needs to tell the political branch that somebody is a very big supporter, and then we saw Tony Abbott on 3 different occasions give speeches at Brickworks factories, and that's a worry.
Well, now I'll go to Conchetta first. Can I get you to respond to that? The general question first, and that issue as well.
Thank you, Salvatore, for your question. Look, there are matters before ICAC at the moment, and certainly I think we need to see those take its course. But can I just say this? It is possible that some people may have broken the law, and irrespective of which political party that they belong to, then there will be consequences. And as Tony Abbott has said, it's appropriate that they face those consequences. In relation to funding, look, there may be any myriad of possibilities in relation to how you deal with political donations. The suggestion that you've made, potentially another suggestion could be that, you know, politicians, for example, could pay a percentage of their salaries or something. I mean, there's any range of matters that could be put in the public arena for consideration, and I suspect that once the ICAC matters settle down, I suspect that we are going to see much debate about this and about reforms, but also in relation to potentially an ICAC at a federal level.
We'll move on to talk about that in a minute, but the role of this Brickworks company, they seem to have funneled money through something called the Free Enterprise Foundation in Canberra, a large sum of money which ended up going to the New South Wales Liberal Party. It's referred to in the press reporting today as illicit funds. Are you concerned at all about the way these cut-out organisations work?
Suffice to say, Tony, that I think it's, at this point in time, these matters are before ICAC, and I'm sure that
there's no privilege, Connie.
There's no privilege.
Yes. They're open for discussion.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But can I just On that point about the brickworks, I mean, let's not forget that before the last federal election, there were a lot of people who wanted us to abolish the carbon tax. I mean, wherever you went, individuals, companies were telling us that you needed to abolish the carbon tax. So because somebody sends an email that simply says, look, hang in there about the carbon tax, is nothing out of the ordinary. I think people frequently...
Just talking about this Free Enterprise Foundation and the $125,000 that it funneled to the New South Wales Liberal Party. It came from Brickworks. Brickworks happens to be a property developer. That seems to be wrong.
But I think you need to, at a federal level, whilst there were some restrictions in relation to giving of donations at a state level, there were no such restrictions in relation to the federal level. As far as other matters are concerned, I really don't.
Okay, I'm just going to go to... all right, I'm just going to quickly...
Matters before ICAC.
Well, we'll go back to that. We have a Facebook question, and then I'll bring in all the other panellists. This is from Sue Todd in Yalama in Victoria. I'd like to know when ICAC is going to start investigating federal politicians. Let's go to Sam Daciari.
I think there's been a few federal politicians that recently have been investigated. But look, touching on that and touching on what Salvatore said earlier, let's be clear. In this state, the sooner we ban donations from individuals, companies and businesses, the better. You know, I spent a lot of time in politics.
And unions?
Well, look, if you're going to ban it, you have to ban it for everybody. You have to set the same set of rules for everyone and move towards a completely public-funded model when it comes to how you fund your election.
Okay, sorry, are you going to take that to the national conference?
Well, I will be. Can I say? I'll issue a federal thing at ICAC as well. Let me explain to you because there's actually a few points. Certainly for this state, for New South Wales, at a state level, it's something we need to do. And part of the reason is this. You know, I spent a lot of time talking politics, and I've been a party secretary, and I've been responsible for fundraising. I know what the Liberal Party clearly did with the Free Enterprise Foundation. There'll be an ICAC process and a legal process. They're funneling money they weren't allowed to receive through that to bring it into their state branch, which is an illegal thing to do now. There'll be a process, there'll be court cases, there'll be this and that, but frankly, that's where it's going to end up. When I talk to my friends in the US who are involved in politics, this is the stat they give me that scares me. You know, the job of a federal US congressman is to spend 85% of their time raising money.
Yeah.
How is that good for democracy? How is that good for public policy? How is that good for decision making? I believe New South Wales at a state level, and the state leader John Robertson's been really strong on this, should lead the way and ban it. Has the case been made to do it at a federal level? I think you've got to be careful about a one-size-fits-all, but clearly in this state, in this city, there are calls, and rightfully so, to say, you know what, let's just bring it all to an end.
Okay. Well, I mean, the irony is that the Liberals could have won the election for $5.
If that's what they were prepared to do with an election they couldn't lose, imagine what they would have done if it was close.
Okay,
what I was going to say is that why don't we have a federal ICAC? I mean, anyone who thinks that corruption stops at state borders is completely nuts. Well, so why? I mean, all I can think of is that both sides are going to get caught in it somewhere along the line.
Well, both sides have been caught in it in New South Wales, as we know.
But federally, that will happen as well. And is there a reluctance to push ahead and have one because politicians are going to be caught up in it?
Okay, I moved a motion to take to the next federal ALP conference, at the state conference a few weeks ago. I seconded a motion that this is something we should be seriously put it on the agenda, that we debate it at the next ALP federal conference. But here's my only thing that I think we need to do. We need to go a little bit further from where we've been at a state level. And I think we should be looking at something similar to what they've got in the UK and in New Zealand with the Serious Fraud Office that doesn't just look at the politicians and public servants, that's got to be part of it, but also looks at the white-collar crime, the white-collar crooks. You know, Jonathan touched on earlier about Commonwealth Bank. What's happened in Commonwealth Bank, Commonwealth Financial Planning, is a travesty. 400,000 people, look like up to 400,000 people have been ripped off with dodgy financial advice, and they're sitting there in the Combank paying themselves bonuses for it. You know, this is the kind of thing we should be looking at as well as the politics.
Okay, I'm just going to go back to, I'll come to this side of the panel.